Hello and welcome. Boy Maximortal, a print-on-demand series, written and illustrated by Rick Veitch, continues the story that began in Maximortal. Although, technically, the story began in Brat Pack. However, Brat Pack and the two specials that followed happened near the end of the King Hell Heroica saga. The life of Truman, the being that will become Maximortal, has yet to be fully revealed. Boy Maximortal significantly fills in some gaps in that character's history. Boy Maximortal takes place following the events of Maximortal, and it addresses what happened to this being and what influenced him during his development into maturity. Concurrently, there's an FBI investigation into his potential origin and his ultimate purpose. These pieces feature some well-known public figures who provide insight into Maximortal. Continuing with the theme started with Brat Pack, the series further explores the exploitive nature of the comic industry. It includes some highly transparent versions of famous comic book people. Gilbert Shelton and S. Clay Wilson are featured, and they fulfill an important role. But the primary focus of this theme is on Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Of the two, Kirby is at the forefront and presented as a vessel of creativity, or possibly a prophet of the medium. Alongside him is Lee, who is portrayed in a rather unflattering light. He comes off as a directionless opportunist who has no sense of vision, nor does he have an original idea in his head. Oddly, Lee's idea of a men's magazine has a cover titled, "Weasels Rip My Flesh." This is the title of a 1970 Frank Zappa album. I genuinely have no idea what connection Veitch is making here, or whether he just liked the title and thought it would be an amusing insert. I lean towards the latter. Kirby and Lee's working relationship mirrors the relationship Siegel and Schuster experienced with Sidney Wallace in the previous Maximortal miniseries. All three creators tapped into something ineffable, and they displayed a level of creativity that is difficult to comprehend. Unfortunately, there were men willing to exploit that creativity for their own selfish needs. Lee is simply the next link in that chain of industry exploitation. Getting back to Kirby for a moment, there are some truly great sequences highlighting how he lived in this world, but his mind was constantly drifting into a separate world of imagination. In particular, Kirby's journey to the Marvel office, where the background is a developing war story, likely based on his own experiences, is not only a visually perfect moment, but it's a great character beat as well. Veitch bleeds these moments of reality and imagination together seamlessly, showing how Kirby possibly took traumatic situations and crafted them into dramatic, creative scenes. One very appropriate scene is a homage to the Stanley Kubrick dark comedy, Dr. Strangelove. The president, JFK, discusses what to do about the problem that is Maximortal. Not only does Veitch draw George C. Scott and Peter Sellers perfectly, but he captures Kubrick's framing as well as one can in a static image. Again, it's very appropriate, since they are discussing a person they used as an atomic weapon in the previous series. Veitch's changing art style is worth a mention. For Brat Pack, he used what I consider the classic Veitch style. It's black and white with gray tones, which evokes the grim and gritty atmosphere of the late 1980s. Maximortal was in full color, and that worked for the material, although current editions are in black and white, which maintains the overall visual continuity. With Boy Maximortal, the style changes again. It returns to black and white, with clean lines that may have been produced digitally. I lean towards artwork produced on a drawing tablet because all of the lines are of a similar thickness. It's reminiscent of the flashback sequences he did for Supreme. That is, it's simplistic in appearance, without a lot of unnecessary detail. Which isn't to say it's simple. A lot can be done with a cleaner style, as one can see with the work of Mike Allred. Considering the era, the 1960s, and the parallel between Maximortal and Superman, the artwork looks like a homage to the classic work of Curt Swan, which I do believe is what Veitch was aiming for with this style, and he hits it perfectly. As for criticisms, some might point to the scene where Boy Maximortal pleasures himself and his, discharge erupts through the wall and, embeds itself in a nearby woman as a bit distasteful, or somewhat ridiculous and over the top. I believe this was a sly reference to the Larry Niven essay, Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex, which has been reprinted numerous times. It was originally published in 1969, so it's era appropriate. Regardless, Niven satirically looks at the actual repercussions of Superman having a physical relationship with a human woman. It wouldn't go well for the woman. The Kryptonian discharge would do various nasty things, none of which I can outline on this platform. but there is a connection between this essay and that scene in Boy Maximortal. Boy Maximortal's proximity to his creator's bodily waste, causing him to be weak, is an element that continues. It's a very base addition that makes alchemical sense. And if one continues with the alchemy metaphor, crafting crap into gold could be seen as an allusion to Maximortal himself. After all, his creator took a collection of ideas and made them cohesive and good, which in turn helps solidify Maximortal's presence to some degree. However, this base material, this waste in its basic form, is also his weakness, as utilized by El Guano in the previous miniseries. One can easily justify its inclusion and its purpose. It does work. But I've always found it a bit off-putting and crass, which is, quite honestly, probably my own thing. And with Boy Maximortal, it is done as tastefully as possible. Despite those two very minor points, Boy Maximortal is a great piece of work from a mature storyteller. Brat Pack may have come from a place of spite and dissatisfaction with the shape of the industry in the late 1980s. The follow-up, Maximortal, was an interesting but slightly mystical and surreal addition to this evolving epic. Then there's the specials, which occur at the very end of the story and seem to be bridges between the past and the future. Until recently, piecing them all together into a cohesive whole was a challenge. It's not that the story, as presented, didn't make sense. It's that there were huge gaps waiting to be filled. In my opinion, Boy Maximortal fills in many of those gaps and brings a definite sense of continuity to the King Hell Heroica epic. It's the missing piece that shows the potential and direction of the remaining series. And it is really damn good. I mean, it's impressively good from beginning to end. For fans of the series, you need to get this as soon as possible. For those new or interested in this evolving epic, I would highly recommend the prior series, Maximortal, and this recently completed series. For now, Brat Pack can be skipped. It has its place, but that place is in the future. I've no intention of spoiling any major developments. However, to give one a sense of its place within the epic being told, Boy Maximortal does include some context worth noting. There's a brief blink and you miss it segment that shows the beginning of Dr. Blasphemy. We get his parentage and what led him to become Maximortal's antagonist. Not only does Maximortal's spiritual father, Jerry Siegel, provide guidance in person, but he also secretly gives that guidance through comics. This mirrors Siegel's real life, where he continued to write for DC without any credit, notably on Superboy. So Siegel's influence was highly important in the development of Maximortal. Along the same lines, there's young Maximortal's girlfriend, Eva Evans. Obviously, Veitch is continuing Superman's interest in women with a first and last name that begins with the same letter. Eva is something of an amalgamation of Lois Lane's streetwise intelligence filtered through Lana Lang's small-town perspective. So she's very down-to-earth, or grounded if you will, which in turn grounds Maximortal. And, in the traditional sense, she's the one who transitions him from a boy to a man. This awakening leads to other revelations about Maximortal's purpose on this world. And possibly, this awakening is why Boy Maximortal takes on a heightened appearance of the Enlightened One, Buddha. Conceptually, Veitch attempts to flesh out Maximortal's origin. It is quite ephemeral and rooted in spiritual concepts about the origin of imagination itself. Imagination, or creativity, is like time. We can describe the effect, but we can't explain where it originates. Time moves forward irreversibly. We don't know why. Ideas form spontaneously from a source we don't comprehend. There are various theories and various methods to explain them, but both time and imagination seem to defy a concrete explanation. Ultimately, Maximortal appears to originate from this area of spontaneity and timelessness. The ending seen in Brat Pack may be similar to the ending seen in The Invisibles. What we perceive as an end-time scenario is reality being altered in some fashion and humanity being elevated. It is an apocalypse in the sense that everything we know ends, but something entirely new and potentially wonderful arises from it. In the end, after almost 20 years of no activity, Veitch's return to the series is both refreshing and amazing. It's a rare occasion that a creator returns to a seemingly abandoned project. It's even rarer that the project is as good or better than the prior work. Usually, one would say the best work is behind an established, mature creator. However, with Veitch, that statement is untrue. His best work, in relation to King Hell Heroica, is right now and, very possibly, whatever arises in the future. Thank you for watching. I'd like to mention that links to Boy Maximortal are provided in the description below. I also need to mention I don't get a cut of the action. I'm simply doing it to support a creator. I've recently been the recipient of overwhelming support, and I hope in some small, possibly insignificant way to pay some of that kindness forward. Mr. Veitch's work stands on its own quite easily. It doesn't need my endorsement. But this is one occasion where I hope to direct you to a piece of work you might enjoy, and as a best result, encourage Mr. Veitch to create more. Thanks to all my fine supporters on Patreon and YouTube. Your ongoing support makes it possible for this channel to continue. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so very, very much. Extra special thanks to Salmonella13, Eidolon, Constant Disappointment Records, Jeff Nicholson, Sickin, Francis De La Cruz, Chris Malloy, Michael DeFonte, John Nyukes, Andrew Barton, Odin Ashcroft, Ruby St. Dennis, Phil Sagan, Edward Clayton Andrews, Corey Drew, L.S. Gregor, Brian Deaton, Tom Granis, James Graham, and Matt Marino. You are all justified and ancient. Until next time.